Welcome, come in and join us for another exciting special edition of Plugged into Christ. Today I'm excited to have a very special guest back on the podcast, Dr. David Graves. You remember Dr. Graves appeared on Plugged into Christ in 2025, episode 50. I'm happy to report that he received a lot of downloads for that and thousands of listeners that are more than any other previous episode that I have done thus far. Today, I want to dig in deeper to the large amount of archaeological field work that Dr. Graves has done over the years and discuss those archaeologists he's worked with alongside over all those years. Welcome, Dr. Graves. It's so wonderful to have you back on the Plugged into Christ podcast.
Good to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, I always want to invite you. You're one of those archaeologists that I very much look up to. You know, I'm what they call, I guess, not being an archaeologist, but a historian. I'm a archaeological enthusiast. But I'm a historian.
Sometimes we call them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we call them armchair archaeologists.
That's me. That's me. But I love archaeology. I've loved it since I was 7 years old. And it's fantastic. I just feel like as if life got in the way, and so I did other things, and I didn't become an archaeologist like I wanted to. But I've been studying it now for 56 years, and I study all of it. That would be Southern Mediterranean, all of the Southern Mediterranean, ancient history, Near East, and Holy Land archaeology and history, ancient history. And it's very tough. It's very tough to cover that much ground when you only got one lifetime to do it, because all the stuff keeps coming, all the new finds and everything. You got to try to keep up with it. I get all the archaeological magazines. I even get a few of them from England, just so I can keep up.
Well, I hear you. I started late in my life as well. I wanted to be an archaeologist, but then, as you say, life gets in the way with the family and all. So I ended up going back for my PhD and did that when I was 50.
Wow.
And did most of my work in my 50s in archaeology and field work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you, I'd studied it all of my life, right from my undergrad all the way through, but the first opportunity I had to go overseas was in 1996 with my mom, my first trip to Israel.
Wow.
So and we always joked about being the two gray-haired people sitting on the bus, driving around in Israel.
Yeah. I mean, once I started reading archaeological books and that, and I started, because of my brother Peter, of course, he's a PhD in music, and he turned me on to academia and things like that. I started reading papers, and I haven't quit since. Every book I get my hands on archaeology, it's part of my library. Even some now that I can't get hold of because they're not in print anymore. But I try very hard to get them. Some of them
are being digitized, and you can get them digitally through Logos or whatever. I guess I just had 7 or 8 of my books released in digital form through Logos, Bible software, and that's the majority of my library now. Where I traveled so much I couldn't take my library with me, but I could take my laptop, so I had all of the books I wanted with me.
That's great. That is great. In 2006, you did I think was that your first work as an archaeologist, where you did a surface survey of the Agora Gorge, 10,000 level on Mount Ararat?
The first work that I had really done was during my PhD research in Turkey, where I had done most of the work on the western. I did it on Smyrna, ancient Smyrna. It's modern day Izmir. So I while I had not done any archaeological excavation there, I excavated their museums, if I put it that way.
Ah, okay.
And also their libraries. So I did a lot of research there and a lot of work with the British Museum. But my first and I did some work in Egypt, but I hadn't actually dug. The first, I guess, surface survey I did was in Turkey.
Mm-hmm. And
That year.
was that because it was a site that was believed to be where Noah's Ark was at?
Yes, I was the operational manager for an organization called Imaging, Archaeological Imaging, and my job was going to be to do ground-penetrating radar on the ice cap, and so we had gone over. Rex Geisler and myself had gone over to get permits from the Turkish government to do the climb and then to do the scientific work. We signed a contract with Ataturk University and their archaeological department that year, and then Rex and I got permission to climb in the Ahura Gorge region of the Mount Ararat, which was on the Armenian side. And we were the first Westerners, or one of the first Westerners, to actually get access to that area. It's operated and governed by the military. So we did a surface survey looking for pottery during our exploration of that Ahura Gorge region.
Okay. Wow.
So I guess that would be my first official archaeological exploration that began back in that year.
And then I was reading documents about the papers from and some stuff that was written about 2009, the Temple Mount antiquity salvage operation. With Gabriel Barkay, who is again like you, another phenomenal archaeologist. He is just phenomenal. I miss him. Take listeners through what you and Dr. Barkay's role it was in that salvage operation.
Well, that year we were working at Tal al-Hammam, Dr. Scott Stripling and myself, and we sort of broke away from our group for a couple of weeks, and we took we did a tour of Israel, combined with our excavation, so they came over early. So Scott and I led a tour of Israel for a group of intrepid travelers, I'll say, and a couple of families, I think, from his church. And so we did a week's excavation. Well, not excavation; it's actually wet sifting.
Okay.
At the Temple Mount Sifting Project. So Gabriel Barkay had recovered a lot of the soil from the Temple Mount. They were digging up some stuff and they were dumping soil, and he got permission to take the soil and to start a wet sifting project. It's run for many, many years, and it's still running today. Frankie Snyder was a friend. We became good friends and came and actually dug with us at Shiloh. Scott and I had discovered the benefits of wet sifting at the Temple Mount Sifting Project with Zaki. He was one of the supervisors there, and Frankie Snyder. Gabe Barkay he wasn't there all the time, but he would come occasionally. And so we got the idea that this would be great to use on our sites. So when Dr. Stripling went over to be the director of the Shiloh excavation, we set the wet sifting stations up there. We had another fellow Canadian, a friend of mine, who he designed the wet sifting station. So off season, he designed it here in Canada and shipped over some of the parts, and we bought parts here or there in Israel, and they put together a wet sifting station at Shiloh. And the reason we could do it there and not at Tel Hammam is because we had access to the water.
Mm-hmm.
And you need, high volumes of water, which we didn't have at the site so much at Tel Hammam. We had little water, but we usually had to go off site to do our pottery washing. Most seasons we would do it back at the hotel. But at Shiloh, the national park, and they had water access, and so they set up a large wet sifting station. We were the first excavation in Israel.
Okay.
To do wet sifting outside of the Temple Mount project. It's being done today at some other sites, and some archaeological sites end up contracting out their sifting to the Temple Mount Sifting Project. It's been renamed now. It's another I forget the name of it now, but they renamed it and continue to do wet sifting, which is very valuable. It's where we use water instead of just dry sifting, and we're able to find a lot of small items such as the scarabs, little scarab seals, coins, animal bones, and things of that, even some seeds. So it's become very important. And they developed a new process the last couple of years to do, they have a new fangled flotation device attached to the wet sifting station at Shiloh.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll just mention to your listeners, the last day of this season was yesterday, and they had the U.S. ambassador, Mike Huckabee, show up. He got a free shirt and a tour and a few photo shots of the U.S. ambassador visiting Shiloh. So it's become quite an important site in Israel right now.
Doctor of Graves, I think back to when I would read about how these enthusiasts back in the 19th century would go there and just halfway destroy things. We've come a long way archaeologically in processes that help really preserve everything we can find. Wet sifting, ground penetration radar, so you know where to start digging and what the outline is of where you're going to go, what you want to dig.
Yeah, the ground penetrating radar doesn't always work very well in the Middle East, because what happens is you have a lot of mud brick that deteriorates, and you have a lot of smaller stones. So you end up usually with just a heap of rock. And so we tried ground penetrating radar. I tried it at Tel Hammam. I think it was the first or second season, and we didn't have very much success there because there's just too much rock.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't. Ground penetrating radar is good for open cavities, tombs, where you have sort of a void in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
My role at Mount Ararat was I was trained in GPR for ice, and in ice, you can see far greater distances
in the ground
rather than just a meter or two. You can see down. I forget now how many meters we can see down, but it's a long way because the ice is not as dense and like rock, so you can see down. And so my role was going to be doing ground penetrating radar on the ice cap, and I was trained archaeologically for that in Massachusetts. But I had a heart attack. As I said, I started late in my life doing this kind of stuff, and I wasn't able to climb, so I was prevented from doing that. But we just had on my podcast, we just interviewed on Monday Aaron Judkins. He's a paramedic. Anyway, he was on the Mount Ararat excavation a couple of years later with their team, and he was part of that ground penetrating radar that I sort of laid the foundation for in getting permits and things for them with Randall Price, who I taught with at Liberty University for 15 years.
Right. In fact, talking about El Hammam, was it 14 seasons you were there?
I was there 10 of the 14
10 to 14.
seasons.
Okay.
There was a couple of years I didn't go. I had my heart attack, of course, and then we had COVID, and then some other things came up that I couldn't go a year or two. But 10 of the seasons, I was there the first season, number one, and then right straight through until pretty much late in the season. And I'll have to get my book out here, and I can tell you my dates. I just don't know the date of my. I had to write them all down because
Right.
I can't remember all the seasons.
Well, and as you find that, is that considered a better, because it's becoming so popular now that it's a northern site that is better suited than the southern site as Sodom. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I would say beyond any question, Tel El Hammam is the biblical site of biblical Sodom, without any question in my mind. I studied it, as I said. My first paper, actually, in my undergrad was on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh yes, that's right.
I went.
That's
where
right.
I learned to. I ran into Dr. Brian Wood. We became good friends, and he was promoting Baba Draw at that time because I hadn't excavated Tel El Hammam.
Mm-hmm.
So we became good friends, and I did all the research, and so I'm very familiar with Baba Draw. But again, it's in the wrong time period. It's the early Bronze. That's not the time of the patriarchs.
Mm-hmm.
After it's destroyed, it was never resettled, only for I think 100 years. But destroyed too early. People say that New Mira is one of the cities of the plains, but it was destroyed like 150 years apart from Baba Draw.
Right.
So if New Mira is Gomorrah and Baba Draw is Sodom, they were destroyed at two different periods. And as we know, the biblical story and account tells us that
they were both
destroyed
destroyed
at the same time period.
Mm-hmm. Same
Yeah,
time.
they're both destroyed at the same time period.
Mm-hmm.
So we did our excavation at Tel El Hammam. Dr.
Stephen Collins.
Stephen Collins. He did his research and wasn't really happy looking at this Bible and reading it to see that it was Baba Draw just didn't make any sense.
Right.
Geographically. So he started looking around the north end of the Dead Sea and stumbled upon these number of sites in the north end of the Dead Sea, and got permits to dig at Tel El Hammam because it was the largest site. And it turns out it was the largest site in the entire Levant.
Wow.
By 10 magnitudes. I mean, we now call it a city-state. And that makes sense if you read the biblical record. That's why Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities of the plain are mentioned.
Right.
Because they were large, thriving cities at the time. So we got permits the first season, and I went with Dr. Collins. A friend of mine, the photographer, at a conference, he was taking photographs, and so Mike Denny, he takes pictures for the Bible in Spade. He's now into his mid 80s, and Mike doesn't go anymore. But we're good friends. We met at a conference. He said, I wanted to go to meet and dig with Brian Wood that season, and Brian said, well, Mike said, we're not digging there this season because it's not safe. So we're going to go to a new dig in Jordan called Tel El Hammam. Do you want to come along? So I said, yeah, sounds great. So that's how I got hooked up with Tel El Hammam. I didn't even know it was a candidate for Sodom at the time. But
Right.
after the research of 15 seasons, we pretty much conclusively stated that we've got all the evidence, right time, right place, right stuff, that it's Sodom. And I've written a book called The Location of Sodom, where I document everything with footnotes and go into. I dive deep into all the academic reports from the different sites and do a lot of groundbreaking research in that, as well as Dr. Collins did. So, in my mind, I certainly think it's the best candidate for Sodom. If somebody can show me a better place, a better location, I'm all ears. But we now know also that it was the whole Jordan Valley was taken out by an airburst.
Right.
So an asteroid comes into the atmosphere and explodes and takes out the entire. And that's undeniable from all the archaeologists that worked at all the sites in the Jordan Valley. They call it the Late Bronze Gap. Why is there nobody living there in the Late Bronze period? Well, because it was taken out by an asteroid.
Right.
It exploded in the air and just took it all out. There's nothing growing there. So it fits perfectly what the Bible describes as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 cities of the plain. And, Zoar, it's up in the hills, and it wasn't affected. But even Jericho is affected across the valley. Even though it wasn't completely taken out, it was affected from the recent archaeology that's being done there by Lorenzo Negro, Italian. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, as they say.
Yeah, because there was a lot of work. Another site, and by the way, to interject this, we talked before, earlier, where you have to be careful about what you're reading, because some people there's people out there who try to just steer people the wrong way. Let's put it that way, and that's why
there's a lot of misinformation.
That's why I trust your books.
A lot of misinformation.
I trust your books. I trust anybody who is in line with that the Bible is the actual account and nothing else. Because I follow another guy.
Now, let me say before you get into that, which is important, my specialty and my focus of study is Greco-Roman, the Greco-Roman period. My PhD is in New Testament studies, in theology and archaeology and history from the New Testament period. However, I did supervise Iron Age and Middle Bronze squares at Tel El Hammam, but the real focus of my work, I was a field supervisor for the Roman period and Byzantine period, and I oversaw the excavation of the bath complex that I discovered and excavated, that I connected and identified with the Roman city of Livius at Tel El Hammam. So,
okay.
After Sodom's destroyed, during the Solomonic period, they re-established the city after about 500 years of not being there. They resettled it and rebuilt a city on top of the destructed city of Sodom, which is not a problem biblically. Sodom was destroyed. It doesn't have to mean that it can't ever be rebuilt as something else. It's a real misnomer that people bring up as, I can't be Sodom because it was rebuilt. Well, that's nonsense. And then it was continually occupied up until the Roman period.
Okay.
And I was able to focus on a building which was 35 meters by 40 meters. I know you're Americans, you don't use that, but in archaeology, we always use the metric system, regardless of where you come from.
Right.
Being a Canadian, that wasn't a big deal for me, but that's big. That's really huge.
Right.
As Lane Rittenmeyer, the architect, said, he says this is the kind of structures that you'd see in Jerusalem, monumental.
Right.
Oh, and incidentally, Tel El Hammam was 62 acres at the time period of Sodom.
Wow.
Middle Bronze period.
Wow.
Jerusalem was only, at that time period, 10 acres. We're 62 and Jerusalem is 10. And Jericho is 10. So like I said, it was a huge site. And that's why it's mentioned in the Bible. And that's why when Lot looked down from between Beth and Ai, he could see it because it stood out like a sore thumb.
Right. It was so huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
Because they.
So anyway, I'm saying that Tel Hammam has a lot of history and
Yes.
various periods, and
Right.
so for people not to get confused, and my real focus there was the field supervisor as well as Dr. Stripling of the Roman area, which was, because it's so large, we could focus on this large building, this bath complex.
Right.
And I think was Herodotus of this bath complex that he beheaded John the Baptist. I think he was probably floating in his bath when he gave the orders. That's apocryphal. There's no evidence of that. But,
Right. Right.
that's
Yeah.
my theory.
And because even after 500 years, because what God did with that was a meteor that had sulfur and brimstone. But after 500 years, that site would have settled enough, the ground would have been well enough for the Romans to build on top of.
Well, the reason why nobody could live there in the Jordan Valley for 500 years, and that's evident archaeologically in every site, whether you're a Christian archaeologist or not, is that it completely wiped out the entire vegetation because the salt from the Dead Sea got sprayed from the meteor that blasted up in the atmosphere and sprayed the salt all over the soil.
Oh, wow.
Around, and so it was infertile. Now, I've got a paper that I've written on the salt curse.
Yes.
The Bible talks about the salt curse. So every time a city is destroyed, the enemy was to throw salt symbolically at on the city. So at the entrance of the city, they throw salt. That's part of the salt curse.
Huh.
Well, here in Sodom and Destroyer's destruction, God literally threw salt on them, indicating, and everybody in the ancient Near East knew that was the salt curse, part of the salt covenant, the covenant of salt, where this was cursed by God and destroyed by God, and he physically threw salt all over it from an airburst. We see that archaeologically from the soil samples we've taken. So it would take 500 years for the soil to regenerate and leach the salt out of the soil.
Wow.
So that plants could regrow and they could take their herds and their sheep back down into the Jordan Valley. Up until that time, during the late Bronze period, everybody was living up on the top of the hills where the airburst didn't affect it. And when Moses comes through, they call it Abel Shittim.
Right.
Place of the acacia trees. We still have acacia trees there today. They were actually a nemesis for me because the acacia trees grew around the perimeter of the bath complex, and so we had to wrestle with those, and they have thorns on them like that.
Oh.
So it is the land of the acacia tree, and it ended up that when Moses comes through, he pitches his tents out there in the plain, Abel Shittim. Everybody agrees it's Tel Hammam is the area. It doesn't necessarily have to be that exact place. We found a late bronze tower up on the top of the tell, and Lane Ridmar says, "Well, that's very easy to identify. That's a fire station where they would light fire to signal to the other cities and everything, information, messages. So this was a place where they would watch out for. The Ark of the Covenant was there with Moses for a couple of years at Abel Shittim before they crossed over and take Jericho, cross the Jordan. But so it all fits. But of course, during Moses' day, there's nobody building houses there or structures there. They're living in tents. So that's why we don't find any late bronze occupation.
Right,
at the
exactly.
site.
I always.
And of course, as you know, camels don't leave much behind. Sheep and goats don't leave much behind.
No.
So.
No. Now I'm gonna destroy this word, this name, because I get the first part right. Kerbet El, I call it Makatur. Your pronunciation is
Makader.
Makader. I never get that right. I don't know why, but apparently it was Ai in the Middle Bronze City of the Old Testament and Ephraim in the New Testament. You worked alongside Dr. Stripling, in fact, which I had in his podcast last year. Tell us what changed about this, what you found concerning the Old Testament city of Ai to the New Testament city of Ephraim, which Jesus visited in John 11, 53 and 54.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to actually dig at Kirbet El Makader the very last day of the last season they excavated there. I flew in. I was going to be working at Qumran that season. That's another story. But Scotty picked me up at the airport and he said, "Dave, you got to dig at Makader." He says, even though it's the last day. So I had the opportunity to do my dream was to dig with Bryant Wood that I had known since the late 70s when he was doing his PhD in the University of Toronto, and that's where I was doing my undergrad work. And I always wanted to dig with Bryant.
Right.
I never had the opportunity until the very last day of the last season of Makader, and it was a highlight.
Did that city grow from Ai in size to Ephraim into the New Testament?
Like all sites, what happens is that they spring up. Something happens, the enemy comes in and takes it and destroys it, and then later on, it ends up being developed again. I'm not an expert on Ai. Like I said, I only dug there for one day.
Okay.
But Dr. Stripling went over to be the director there with Brian Wood, so they're the two experts on it. So I just sort of say, well, that's his cup of tea, and that's his research, and you can't be an expert on every area and every field, so you have to focus.
Right.
But yeah, it's been considered Ai because of the location of it. I have a small section in my books on Ai, the research that was done with Ephraim, which was the New Testament city, and Scott had found a monastery there, or a church, and excavated that. A lot of tessera, which are these little square pieces of stone that they make these beautiful mosaic floors out of. So they were commemorating something there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes.
incidentally, we found a mosaic floor.
Oh.
Tel Hammam.
Wow.
Not too far from where I was excavating, in a banana field. It was actually hush hush, and I've been the only Westerner that's seen it. I published the photos in my book, but there's a beautiful chalice there. But, they're growing marijuana in the banana fields, and so they're regarding it with guns. Joseph, my guide, he took me over there quietly one day and silently. We snuck in, and I got a few pictures. They've turned it into a Muslim cemetery, so you can't excavate it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not permitted.
Yeah, you.
They often will do that.
Right, they will. Yes, they will.
And incidentally, the reason why Tel Hammam was never excavated was because it was so important that in the war with Israel, the 67 war, they dug into the top of it, put tank emplacements up there, and so it was mined after that, so that nobody wanted to go in and dig. But they demined it. The sheep and goats took out a lot of the mines. They're blown up, and then we were able to dig there. So Kay Prague, a British archaeologist, did one little square down in the lower Tell before we were there. But that was the only time it had been excavated. It had been identified by all the old archaeologists, that had gone through. And Nelson Glick, he had gone through and identified it, and Thompson, and I forget the other names, but I got it all recorded in my book on the location of Sodom.
Right.
All the primary sources there.
You and Dr. Randall Price, under the direction of Dr. Orrin Glufeld, worked for about a short amount of time at Qumran K53. Did you find,
Yeah.
were you able to find any additional text of any kind?
We worked there for 2 weeks. We were the first group to actually excavate down to bedrock a Qumran cave since the 50s. So over 60 years, that was the first one that had ever been excavated. And it was in 2017 that we did the excavation there for 2 weeks. And we had a small group. Most of them were Liberty University students. A few of Randall Price's friends, archaeology friends. We had Rick Schuler there. He's AKA John Denver.
Oh,
So he does John Denver performances all over the world and United States concerts. He sings and he looks like him and sounds like him. Just spitting image of John Denver. I didn't know that at the time.
wow. Wow.
So Rick dug with us. He dug with Randall down on the plateau at Qumran. You asked the question, did we find any Dead Sea Scrolls? We did find a scroll, but there wasn't anything written on it that we could identify. A small piece of parchment, and it made world history. It made the front cover of National Geographic that next year, and they wrote an article on the excavation there. I was the registrar of finds, so
Okay.
my role was to record everything we found. We found over 600 pieces of artifacts. They can be anything from seeds to mats to pieces of leather. We found some arrowheads, and we found some beads. We found and this piece of parchment that had been recovered. A lot of pottery, which we knew was Qumran pottery, so we knew that the stuff was there. Now, we had a fellow working with us, a Palestinian, who was actually one of the relatives of the two guys that discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls back in the 50s.
Wow, okay.
And he said to us one day, he says, "You're not likely going to find any scrolls because my relatives cleaned it out a long time ago."
Wow. Yeah, they've been going through those for years. In the many years you've worked as an archaeologist, you work with many great colleagues. Talk about some of them and what you glean for knowledge and in working with them alongside them.
Well, we'll start with Dr. Randall, or not Randall, but Bryant Wood. He's probably the most gracious and knowledgeable archaeologist I've worked with for many, many years. He's kind, he's respectful. He and I disagree over the location of Sodom. We're still good friends and respect him. So I would say that the lesson learned is, even though you disagree with someone, you can still be academic, you can still be friends, and you can be still respectful of other people's opinions and views, even though you disagree with them.
And maybe that's a key for me to be able to have this other doctor on that we talked before previously. About an hour or more ago, and maybe I should just have him on and just do an academic. I may disagree with him on points, but let him give his side of what he believes and let it ride. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like debate a lot today. We need to defend our views, our position, and not just with emotions, but with facts. And even though we may disagree with someone, I'm comfortable enough with my views that I'm not threatened by someone who disagrees with me.
would you agree with me? Because I don't know if you know him, but you might have heard of him, Dr. Kent Hovind. He's a creation science teacher and evangelist. He has Dinosaur Adventureland in Alabama. And he has debated almost 400 times. Academically, they've debated, this theory of evolution versus creation. And he believes that he defends his creation science. But, his goal, though, is still, and I watch him on Rumble, by the way. He's on every night, Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday, and then Sunday as well. And it's good because he doesn't get angry about it. He defends what he believes, but yet he lets people debate him and have open debates. And I think that that's important to that extent that I need to learn that lesson, first of all, that I need to not be standoffish about somebody who has an opposing opinion. Let them let it be academic, an academic discussion. Let them give their views, and then we go from there. And just have a discussion that's open on both sides. Because many times, what we do when we defend sometimes we defend our views, and then we get pompous about it, if you will.
Well, we call it the argumentum ad hominem, where we attack the man instead of the argument. And so we'll say, I don't like your shirt, I don't like your tie. You're a bald-headed man, and I got hair, or something like that. That's an argument against the man. That's got nothing to do with the argument against the view. I learned all my good theology studying heresy.
Yeah. Yes. Because you just have to be, like you said, like we talked earlier. You have to be careful about what you read and what you as opposed to what your belief system is, and what your academic belief system is also, because that way you don't get pulled away and convinced of something that isn't what you believe.
I'll tell you a story. One of the professors I had was the renowned Dr. Roger Nicole. He studied at the Sorbonne. He was Swiss French.
Mm-hmm.
He taught at Gordon Conwell, and he came to Toronto, and I took the person and work of Christ from him.
Mm-hmm.
But he said in class one day, he said, it's very important that you understand the opposition. It's very important that you correctly hold the view and represent the view of the person that you disagree with, and not just build a caricature of their views. He says, because otherwise, when you fly over them and you want to drop your bombs, he says what they're going to say is, ha ha, you missed me, I'm over here.
Right. Right.
So you need to make sure that your arguments land on the target,
Mm-hmm.
their real view, and that you understand it. So he taught me to understand the view of those I disagree with. That's why in my book on the location of Sodom, I studied the Baba Draw and Dr. Brian Wood's views and arguments so closely from them,
Mm-hmm.
not building up caricature, and then seeking to confront that or challenge that with other facts that so when I drop my bombs, they land on the target. I always thought that was a good analogy and words of wisdom.
And you do it academically, not in argument. Academically, you give your proof and what you have in the archaeological record and what you prove, and you write it in a paper, and you let that be the statement for you. And it's a bomb dropped directly on them, on their view, not them, their view. You have a different view, and you write up an academic paper that actually, gives your view of that. Isn't it?
I say I bring.
Go ahead.
I say that I say that in all of my books I bring the receipts.
Yes, you have to. Absolutely. Isn't it something else that a lot of those early archaeologists, including all the way up into the 1950s and 60s, like Dr. Kathleen Kenyon is an example of one. All of those have been proven academically to be incorrect. That
Well, not all of them. Most of them. Some of them, I would say, to be fair, because she did do some good research. It's just that she was a good archaeologist. It's just that some of her conclusions and interpretation of the finds weren't as accurate, perhaps, as they could be, because of, again, presuppositions affect our conclusions. We have to be careful of that. Even me.
Yeah. Yes.
I tell my students my presupposition is that the Bible's true and that it's historically accurate. You may not agree with me on everything, but that's my presupposition, and I wear it on my sleeve.
Right. Did you ever happen to meet or know Dr. Kenneth Kitchen?
I've heard him lecture, but I never met him.
Okay.
Alan Millard, who was a good friend of his, was actually one of the readers of my PhD work. Because Howard Marshall said I can't do the Hittite stuff that you were working on. I can do the Greco-Roman stuff, and even that archaeology I got to get Edwin Yamauchi to work on that. But he was good friends with Ken, and he's since passed away this year.
Right. Yeah, his views were. He had some different views when it came to both the Bible and Egyptology, but academically, people have written, because new finds have come along and new things have been uncovered, and we're learning more about it, that his conclusions were a little off, but his field work was phenomenal. Like you said, Dr. Kenyon was. And we know too that even if you go back further to I'm trying to think of his name now. He was a archaeologist who was one of the first to employ stratigraphy.
Oh, Petrie.
Petrie, that's correct, Doctor.
Sir Flinders. Well, Sir Flinders Petrie, yeah. I actually corresponded with Ken before his death, and I used some of his arguments from his book on the reliability of the Old Testament, which I would highly recommend to everybody interested in the Old Testament to read it, to digest it, sell, as C.S. Charles Haddon Spurgeon used to say, sell everything you have and buy the book. It's very important.
I have.
So he was his, yeah, and he makes arguments there on the covenant and the use of the covenant structures, the suzerainty treaty structure, because that's what I wrote my PhD on. And he allowed me to use a couple of his charts that he had in some of his publications for my PhD dissertation, and I still publish them. I'm going to republish it in my upgraded book on the key themes of the Old Testament. I'm calling it Major Themes of the Old Testament now. And it's going to have fresh images in it and up to date. I've updated a lot of the research because there's been things that have changed, new discoveries and new stuff on the Pool of Siloam and different things like that. So I'm updating that for everybody, and that should be coming out within the next few months. So
yes, me and Dr. Hoban and I should say, we concluded, because back in the 19th century that would have been Hume and all of them would have been a change in direction of thinking about the Bible and reacting to the Bible. And and him and I are both in agreement that the evolution that started getting taught then has, to some people, not all, but some people in archaeology, history, and other fields, that has influenced their thinking. They think in the wrong way, and now they're not trusting the Bible like they should, and they know they should because I always tell somebody that doesn't believe in the Bible, look around you. You have evidence of God everywhere, in every part of the creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say that we probably Wellhausen, the German scholars, had probably a larger effect on biblical scholarship for many years, and then up until I started doing my theological work, it sort of fell to the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have as much of an influence. But while they had a few good ideas, they were quite skeptical, and probably one of my favorite, I call it old timers maybe, would be Sir William Ramsay.
Yes.
He started out skeptical. Of course, he did his work in Turkey, Asia Minor, and that's where I did my PhD work. So, in fact, my supervisor, this is kind of historical. I did my PhD at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is phenomenal.
Under the great New Testament scholar I. Howard Marshall. And I. Howard Marshall taught at Aberdeen. Well, before him, Sir William Ramsay taught humanities at Aberdeen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I. Howard Marshall said to me, he said, he said, you should do your PhD and defend William Ramsay. All three of us were studying at Aberdeen,
mm-hmm.
the same tradition, historical tradition, and I said, well, Howard, I'm too far into my research now. This was like year 3 to really change and shift gears now to do all of my research. So, but what I did do is I dedicated a chapter for all the 7 churches to the research on local references
Mm-hmm.
that Sir William Ramsay was so famous for, and defended him in my book on the Jesus Speaks to the 7 Churches, which is probably one of the most material on the 7 churches you'll find anywhere in print today.
Right.
With the most recent research.
Right.
There's only 2 of us still living that are probably experts in that. It would be Mark Wilson, good friend of mine, as well as myself on the 7 churches. So anyway, that's my story about Aberdeen and how I'm standing in the tradition of the famous. Not that I'm putting myself in the same category as these giants, but honored to be a grad from Aberdeen under Howard, and in the same tradition of William Ramsay. And I've republished a couple of William Ramsay's books.
Oh, have you? Oh, great, okay.
The cities of the what is it called? Cities of Asia Minor, I think it is, and another one on the path, archaeological research. It's about a mile long, the title. You know how they used to do it.
Absolutely. What did you think of
They updated all the photographs.
Wow.
All of his plates.
Wow, that's great.
So they're all full color and high resolution, and new photographs of everything he took photos of in black and white.
Right.
I provided modern photographs or more recent. Anyway, it's
wow, that's great.
all in the tradition of William Ramsay.
In closing, I wanted to ask you about what did you think of what Ron Wyatt did he wasn't a professional archaeologist, but he sure brought a lot of knowledge to the forefront when it comes to Noah's Ark and the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt.
Well, that's actually a misnomer. Ron Wyatt was not an archaeologist.
No, right, he was not, right. No, he was
No,
he worked in the medical field.
I call it pseudo-archaeology. He made a lot of claims that have no archaeological evidence. He goes out into the field somewhere, looks at something like, oh, I see some sulfur balls. That must be Sodom. Well, that's not evidence. That's nonsense. So most of his claims have all been debunked, even by the people from his own Seventh-day Adventist church.
Right.
I've written a book against his research, and I won't even call it research. It's just nonsense. But it's become popular, and people that don't understand and don't have any background, just suck this all in. It's just misinformation, and
not to be relied upon.
Not to be relied upon. If you want some reliable stuff, go to the Associates for Biblical Research.
Yes.
Pick up my books, where, as I say, I bring all the research and all the receipts. You can look up the footnotes and do the research on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I do it all for you, but there's a bibliography, 15 or 20 pages of bibliography, and there's footnotes on every page. So
yeah, I have both.
I back up what I say.
I have both of your books, Biblical Archaeology Volume 1 and 2, right here in my library, and I go to them quite often. But sometimes, I have to go back and look at some of the terminology in that, because I'm not an archaeologist. I'm only an enthusiast. I've been doing it for 56 years. I don't get it all, but I try. I try to cover a lot of ground in 56 years, all that area, and it's not going to happen in my lifetime. It'll take maybe 2 or 3 of my lifetimes to get it all. It's just a lot.
I don't know everything either. All we can do is do what we can do in the limited time we have. But I've tried to be as broad and as general as I can. I focus on a few specific items, like the location of Sodom, and another area of specialty, of course, for me is the 7 churches. So I've focused in more detail on that, because that's my specialty. But I'm not an Egyptologist. I don't claim to be.
Right. Yes.
I'm not an expert on Egypt, although I visited it, and I know the material loosely and vaguely. But
yeah.
I don't try and debate. I don't try and debate with Kenneth Kitchen. He's my go-to person, and
right.
And
but that when you
Alan Millard.
When you have to cover as much ground as I do, that's a lot of stuff. That's Hittite archaeology. That's the Near East. That means the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Urites, all those ancient cultures, even the ancient cultures that were there and in and around the Holy Land too. The Canaanites, the Amorites, all those people. You're trying to get a back view of as much material and understanding as you can of all those things, including Egyptology. Now, my family's Greek, and I love Greek archaeology. I wish I could focus on just that, but my focus gets pulled to new finds in Egyptology and, Hittite, Assyriology, So I'm all over the map. That's why I got a lot of books to research, because I have to.
Right.
Well, you know what, Dr. Gray, I want to thank you for taking this time to be on the Pausing in Christ podcast. You're welcome to come back anytime and join me. I would ask you, you have a large podcast that you do. If you could put in a word.
I think 440,000 somewhere. We're getting 440,000 followers. So it's
wow.
We interview famous archaeologists from all over the world and scholars. So it's taken off. We show artifacts. We talk about the artifacts. We try and sort out false stuff. And we got people on there we disagree with, but we still interview them and get them to present their views and their research and have a fun time. So you can check out I'll get a link there to you and you can put it on your
absolutely. I would love to join that. I would love to join that. And if you could do this for me, is is put a word in, good word in for this podcast, because I know I do the Bible, but I also do ancient history and archaeology, Southern Mediterranean, Near East, Holy Land, and I try to teach as much as I can, as much as I can absorb, if you will, from all this stuff. And it's hard. But if you could do that for me, that would be great. Does that sound good to you? You can put in a good word?
Yep, sounds good.
This concludes today's podcast. I want to personally thank you for listening today, and all of our listeners here in the United States as well as around the world. Please join us for our next podcast. And please pray for those workers and Christians in foreign countries under the umbrella of Voice of the Martyrs. This ministry fully supports Voice of the Martyrs. We also support Associates for Biblical Research. And you can get their magazine, Bible and Spade, or you can listen to their YouTube channel, Digging for Truth. You can look up Dr. Gray's peer-reviewed published papers and books he has written at aberdeen.academia.edu. Plugged into Christ podcasts are published through Buzzsprout.com. You can also find this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Podcast Index, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Alexa, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, Deezer, Listen Notes, Player FM, and YouTube. I want to thank today Dr. David E. Graves for lending his expertise in ancient biblical archaeology and history. This has been a presentation of Plugged into Christ with your host, pastor and teacher, William Polis. I hope you will join us for our next podcast where I will teach 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Until we come together for our next podcast, this is your host, William Polis, praying that God's blessings will be with you.